The most important advisors to our campaign, Ohio's own Bob Paduchek. To all my fellow Americans gathered from near and far, thank you for coming out today. It is great to be back in the Buckeye State. I heard that, but I'm here for one reason and one reason only, and that is that Ohio and America need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. You know, 4 years ago, a movement was born. The movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. Here in Ohio, you believe we could be strong again. You believe we could be prosperous again. You believed America could be respected again. You said yes to President Donald Trump in 2016, and I know in 48 days, Ohio's going to say yes to 4 more years of President Donald Trump in 2020. And the road to victory goes right through Ohio. But it really is great to be out with all of you today. Before I begin, though, allow me to send a word to our fellow Americans who are in the path of Hurricane Sally and also those being affected by the wildfires out west. I want to assure them and all of you that FEMA is on the scene. The Forest Service has deployed thousands out across the west to deal with the fires. But to all in harm's way, we encourage you to stay safe, listen to your state and local authorities, and know that under this president, this administration, that your fellow Americans are with you in prayer, and we're going to stay with you every step of the way until we rebuild bigger and better than ever before. So thank you for that. And thanks for coming out. You all look great. You look fantastic. I got to tell you, the president and I grabbed a bite today before I left town. I said, I'm headed to Ohio, and I think he sounded just a little bit jealous. But he told me to tell you thank you for your support because of Ohio. It's been 3.5 years of promises made and promises kept. It's true. I mean, think about it. 4 years ago, we inherited a military hollowed out by devastating budget cuts, an economy struggling to break out of the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Terrorism was on the rise around the world, and we witnessed a steady assault on our most cherished values. But in those first 3 years, under the leadership of President Donald Trump, we rebuilt our military. We restored the arsenal of democracy. I got to tell you, I'm the proud father of a United States Marine. In fact, my unworthy son-in-law is a pilot in the United States Navy. And I couldn't be more proud to serve alongside a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of our armed forces and their families and our veterans. And it wasn't just about our national security. Under this president's leadership, we revived our economy in those first 3 years. We cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We rolled back more federal red tape than any administration in American history. We unleashed American energy and fought for free and fair trade. In a word, we fought to keep every promise we made to the people of Ohio. We did. And I got to tell you, this president fought for jobs here in the Buckeye State, and he even fought for college football. Just this morning, I know you know, they made it official. The Big Ten is back, and the Buckeyes will be back on the gridiron next month. How great is that? That's a little tough for a Hoosier to hear, but they deserve it. So do you. Beyond all of that progress that we've made on security and prosperity, this president has stood for the rule of law every day of this administration. We've appointed more than 200 conservative judges to our federal courts, including 2 Supreme Court justices. And I can tell you firsthand, they are all men and women who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. It's true. And I got to tell you, it's a great privilege for me to serve as Vice President to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. Beyond all of that, President Donald Trump has stood every day with the men and women who serve in law enforcement, and we will stand with them for 4 more years. The President and I know what people across the Buckeye State know. And that is the men and women who serve in law enforcement are some of the best people in this country. It's true. I mean, they put their lives on the line every single day. When they put on that uniform, strap on a sidearm, they walk out the door, and they count our lives more important than their own. And those that are gathered here and everyone who serves in law enforcement deserves the respect of every American every day. Would you show them how much you appreciate what they do to protect and serve our families every day? God bless them all. And we're living in a very challenging time. Men and women that serve on the thin blue line. This past weekend, I know you all saw it. One more attack on our heroes in uniform. 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies sitting in their squad car were shot in cold blood. One of those deputies, we're told, is a mother of a 6-year-old. The other's just 24 years old. Both of them worn the badge for less than a year. Just incredible. A surveillance video that was recently released shows one of those sheriff's deputies, the mother of the 6-year-old, heroically tending to her partner's injuries while she herself bled from a gunshot wound to the jaw. Now, I know we're all thankful to hear that both sheriff's deputies are on the road to recovery, but they're going to remain in our prayers and in our hearts until they come all the way back. It wasn't just the shooting, but a lot of you saw the videos too. Somebody across the street was literally laughing right after the police officers were shot. And protesters gathered outside the hospital in Los Angeles and chanted, "We hope they die." Men and women, the disrespect and these attacks on those in law enforcement must stop, and they must stop now. Now, President Trump and I will always support the right of Americans to peaceful protest. It's enshrined in our Constitution. But rioting and looting is not peaceful protest. Burning businesses and homes is not free speech. Attacking and threatening civilians and law enforcement officers will not be tolerated. Those who do so will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. In the wake of this summer's violence in cities, President Trump took action. Earlier in our administration, we already funded more than 4,000 law enforcement officers through the COPS program. But this summer, we launched what's called Operation Legend, named after a little boy who lost his life in a random shooting as he literally laid in his bed. But little Legend Teleferno will not have died in vain. As we speak, Operation Legend, we've deployed more than 1,000 federal law enforcement officers to support state and local law enforcement authorities in major cities around the country, and they've made more than 2,000 arrests of violent protesters in America. We are going to have law and order in every city in this country for every American of every race and creed and color, so help us God. Now, for months, all Joe Biden ever talked about was peaceful protesters, as the American people watch businesses in our major cities literally burn. But 2 weeks ago, he did step out and, in his words, condemn violence in all the form it takes. But right after that, he criticized law enforcement. The truth is, Joe Biden never called out his campaign staff or his running mate for raising money to bail out violent criminals, and he still has never called on Democrat mayors to get their cities under control. I think you all know here, Joe Biden would double down on the policies that have contributed to the atmosphere of violence in our cities. Joe Biden says that America is systemically racist, and that law enforcement, in his words, has a, quote, implicit bias against minorities. When he was asked whether he'd support cutting funding to law enforcement, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely. But I'll make you a promise. Under President Donald Trump, we will always stand with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line. We're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. The people of Ohio know we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African American neighbors or any of the minorities or families that live in our major cities. We can improve public safety in America, back the blue, and also support all the families that live in our major cities with more jobs, better education, better health care. That's what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years, and we're going to keep doing both for 4 more years in the White House. So we rebuilt our military, we revived our economy, we stood for life, our liberties, and law and order. And in 3 short years, you also know what happened across the Buckeye State. Under President Donald Trump, it was jobs, jobs, jobs. After cutting taxes and red tape, after fighting for free and fair trade, putting American jobs and American workers first, fighting for American energy, businesses large and small, created more than 7 million good-paying jobs all across this country. And I know you all know the story, but President Trump also was willing to roll his sleeves up and fight for Ohio jobs in Lordstown. I saw it. You all know for more than 50 years, General Motors had a plant in Lordstown. The men and women that served in that plant, they created cars that were literally sold across the country and across the world. When the facility closed in March of 2019, it was a heartbreak for that entire community and for the state of Ohio. But President Donald Trump wasn't having any of it. He picked up the phone, he called the president of General Motors, and he told GM, find a way to bring jobs back to Lordstown, and they did. True. On May 8th, earlier this year, we actually got the call. The president called it great news for Ohio, and it was. GM sold their plant to a company that's going to manufacture pickup trucks, and GM announced that they're going to build a battery plant in Lordstown that could employ up to 1,100 people in just a few short years. I was actually there in June when Lordstown Motors was unveiled. They rolled out the first fully electric pickup truck on the market in the United States of America. And I'm currently between pickup trucks. So I told them I was in the market. But thanks to President Donald Trump, the Mahoning Valley and Ohio are going to continue that great auto manufacturing tradition for generations to come. That's called promises made and promises kept. I mean, the truth is this president's been fighting for jobs not just here in Ohio, but all across the country from day one. And working men and women around America were winning like never before in those first 3 years. You know, wages were rising across the board in this country at the most rapid pace that they had in 10 years. But they were rising most rapidly for hardworking, blue-collar Americans. The forgotten men and women of America were forgotten no more. I mean, in 3 short years, with your support and this president's leadership, we created the greatest economy in the world. At the end of our first 3 years, more Americans were working than ever before in the history of this country. And the truth is, we have a lot of people to thank, a lot of great partners on Capitol Hill, but let me take a minute just to say thank you to Congressman Troy Balderson and Senator Rob Portman. They've been great partners with us all along the way. With their support and your support in 3 short years, we made America great again. We did. And then the coronavirus struck from China. The people of Ohio deserve to know that before the first documented case of community transmission in the United States happened, President Trump did what no other American president had ever done. He suspended all travel from China. He put the health of America first. Now, Joe Biden criticized that move. He said it was xenophobic. But I can tell you, as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, I know that action saved untold American lives, and it bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. At the President's direction, we marshaled the full resources of the federal government and the American economy. We reinvented testing all across the nation. We saw to the manufacture and delivery of hundreds of millions of medical supplies to our doctors and nurses and hospitals. No American that ever required a ventilator was ever denied a ventilator in the United States of America, and we are well on our way to having a vaccine before the end of this year. Now, I want you to know, I think that all that we've done here is a testament to the strength and the resilience of the people of this state and this nation. Incredible commitment of our doctors and nurses and healthcare workers who deserve the admiration of every single American every day. It's a tribute to our president, bold leadership that he's provided, but I want to also say, here in Ohio, it's also been a tribute to the strong and consistent leadership of Governor Mike DeWine. He has led this state strongly through a challenging time, and he has our thanks. Let's hear it for Governor Mike DeWine. He's done a great job for Ohio. Now, I want to tell you, our hearts do go out to all the families that have lost loved ones in the course of this pandemic, including more than 4,000 families here in Ohio. I want to assure them, if you're with us today or if you're looking on, you've always been in our hearts and you'll be in our prayers. But I'm happy to report to you that as we speak, we are continuing to develop all new medicines each and every day that are saving lives. And as I said before, while Joe Biden said at their national convention that no miracle is coming, we actually think we might just be a short time away from when America will produce the first safe and effective coronavirus vaccine, and we will begin to deliver it to the American people the moment it's approved. We're in the miracle business in America, Joe. So we're slowing the spread, we're protecting the vulnerable, we're saving lives, and we're developing life-saving medicines. And in the midst of this pandemic, President Trump also worked with the leaders in Congress in both political parties to secure support for Americans' families and America's businesses impacted by this virus that came to us from China. We actually appropriated more than $4 trillion in direct aid to families. We created a paycheck protection program that allowed businesses across the state and nation to save 50 million American jobs. It truly is extraordinary. But I promise you, in the days ahead, we'll continue to put the health of America first. But because of that strong foundation that we poured in those first 3 years, and because of the unprecedented aid that we made available to America's families and America's businesses, after losing 22 million jobs at the worst moments of this pandemic, we've seen 10.6 million Americans already go back to work, including nearly 400,000 people right here in the Buckeye State. We're opening up America again. And we're opening up America's schools. So we've been going through a time of testing. But I came here today because very soon we're going to go through a time of choosing. As President Trump said just a few short days ago, and I quote, "At no time before has there been a clearer choice between the two parties, between two visions, between two philosophies, or agendas for the future." As he said, Joe Biden has put forward the most extreme platform of any major party candidate in U.S. history. I mean, think about it. In the middle of a global pandemic, Joe Biden wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion. President Trump, we cut taxes across the board for American families and businesses, and we're going to keep cutting taxes for 4 more years. Joe Biden wants to bury our economy under an avalanche of red tape. On Monday, Joe Biden gave a speech where he was touting his own version of the Green New Deal. I mean, you know, the only thing green about the Green New Deal is how much green it's going to cost all of us if they ever sign it into law. I mean, he actually bragged about implementing regulations that would literally destroy Ohio jobs and livelihoods. President Trump, well, we cut more federal red tape than any administration in American history, and we're going to keep on chopping for 4 more years. And when it comes to trade, I don't have to tell all the working Americans gathered here, this Hoosier talking to you today, I saw what happened after NAFTA. I mean, we literally saw 60,000 factories close across this country in the years after NAFTA was signed into law. When Joe Biden was vice president, he did nothing to fix it. The other day, I actually heard him blame Republicans in Congress for the fact that their administration didn't do anything about NAFTA. Well, I hate to tell you, but the administration negotiates trade deals, all right? But thanks to President Donald Trump, NAFTA is yesterday, and the USMCA is here to stay, and it puts American jobs and American workers first. It's true. You know, the experts tell us the USMCA could create up to 600,000 new jobs. And that includes nearly 50,000 manufacturing jobs. Remember the last administration? It was about this time 4 years ago, the last president was asked about manufacturing jobs. They'd lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs under the last administration. And he said they were never coming back, remember? He said, "What magic wand do you have?" Well, we didn't need a magic wand. We just needed President Donald Trump in the White House. 500,000 manufacturing jobs in just 3 years. I'm telling you what. I mean, out here in the heartland, I always like to tell people we do two things really well. We make things and we grow things. Right? And this is a president who believes. He believes in the strength of the heartland, and we're going to keep fighting for manufacturing. And you know, on the subject of trade, it isn't just all about our neighbors to the north and the south. When we came into office, half of our international trade deficit was with one country, China. Literally $500 billion a year was being lost in a trade imbalance to China. And Joe Biden, well, for decades, he was a cheerleader for communist China. And where we've stood strong to level the playing field, Joe Biden announced about a month ago that he wants to repeal all the tariffs that President Trump put into place to level the playing field for American workers. President Trump, he stood up to China from day one and said the era of economic surrender is over. And I promise you, when it comes to trade, President Trump is always going to put American jobs and American workers first. Finally, I don't have to tell you here in Ohio that when Joe Biden was vice president, he also tried his level best to shut down the coal industry in this state. Remember? I mean, Joe Biden actually told a group of coal miners once that they should go ahead and, quote, learn to code. President Donald Trump, we opened up coal country, and the war on coal is over. You know, the truth is, Joe Biden and the radical left want to crush American energy and crush American energy jobs. They want to raise the cost of electricity for every household and every business in Ohio. I mean, after months of campaigning on a plan to abolish fossil fuels, Joe Biden actually came out again the other day, and he said, "I am not for banning fracking." Yeah, right. You know, you all deserve to know, when Joe Biden was asked in July of last year this question, he was asked, would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration? Joe Biden said, and I quote, "No, we would make sure it's eliminated." Last March in a debate, Joe Biden said, quote, "No new fracking." You know, here in Ohio, some estimates show that ending fracking would literally cost 700,000 jobs. But when Joe Biden was asked in a debate, specifically, he was asked, would you be willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of blue-collar jobs for the sake of their radical environmental agenda? He said, and I quote, "The answer is yes." He even told one supporter, I guarantee, we're going to end fossil fuels." Well, men and women of Ohio, I don't know what they're saying now, but I think we should believe them all the times they've said before. They're going to ban fossil fuels. They're going to crush American energy, crush American energy jobs. Because I think Joe Biden doesn't understand, America's future depends on energy independence. That's why President Donald Trump unleashed American energy, and we are today energy independent for the first time in 70 years. America is a net exporter of energy. I mean, I've always believed that the greatness of this country comes from our faith, our freedom, and our vast natural resources. And President Trump and I are going to continue. Make it possible for us to develop all the great resources of this land that are going to fuel a great American comeback. And finally, the choice could not be more clear when it comes to values. And this president, from very early on, has stood for all the liberties enshrined in our founding documents and in our Bill of Rights. And from day one, President Trump and our administration have stood for the religious freedom of every American of every faith, and we always will. You know, the freedom of religion has been called our first freedom. Even a casual study of the American founding will tell you. The folks that came across the pond long before my grandfather did in the 1920s. That generation came here for freedom. They came here for the freedom of religion, chief among them. That's why this president has taken such strong steps from early on to defend those God-given rights. He ended the enforcement of the Johnson Amendment and freed up the freedom of speech in every pulpit in America. And it was this president that ended the last administration's assault on the Little Sisters of the Poor. I mean, the president made that decision on the very first National Day of Prayer. He ended the lawsuit that had literally hauled this group of wonderful nuns. Women had taken a vow of poverty to do nothing but to help the poor, had been hauled into court by the Obama administration. The good news was, after the president ended that action, the Supreme Court made it permanent earlier this year. They said President Trump was right when he ended the assault on the Little Sisters of the Poor, but believe it or not, Joe Biden, after even the Supreme Court said that we couldn't impose the Obamacare mandates on those nuns, Joe Biden said he's actually going to work to reimpose those mandates on the Little Sisters of the Poor. But you know what? We're not going to let it happen, because we're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. You know, and it's not just been about our religious liberty. It's also been about an issue so near and dear to the hearts of tens of millions of Americans, including my little family, that I can't tell you. In Joe Biden, you actually have a candidate who supports taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. And President Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in American history. That's your choice. I mean, when you look at their agenda, at least when they're talking about it. As I watched their convention, I didn't hear much about their agenda. They spent most of their time attacking America and attacking America's president, didn't they? But when you look at their agenda, it's clear. Joe Biden would be nothing more than a Trojan horse for the radical left. And the choice in this election has never been clearer. Men and women of Ohio, the stakes have never been higher. And you know, Ohio's always played an outsized role in presidential politics. You did in 2016, you will again in 2020. And I know you take that to heart. Now, Joe Biden said democracy is on the ballot. Well, I think our economic recovery is on the ballot. I think law and order are on the ballot. But I also think there are things much more fundamental and foundational to our country that are on the ballot. In this election, here in Ohio and across America, we will decide not so much whether America will be more conservative or more liberal, more Republican or more Democrat, more red or more blue. I think the choice in this election is whether America remains America. whether we are going to chart a future based on the timeless ideals of freedom, personal responsibility, of life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness, or whether we're going to take that hard left turn and take America down a path that you don't need to look too far around the world to see in Western European social welfare states and the like. So men and women of Ohio, that's the choice we face. So we got to decide right here and right now that Joe Biden will never be President of the United States. We're going to re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years. That's it. That's it. You stop your neighbors and friends that worship at work, just walk up to them and say, 4 more years. That's all you need. I mean, 4 more years means more jobs. 4 more years means more support for our troops and our police. 4 more years means more judges. And it's going to take at least 4 more years to drain that swamp. You know, men and women, we got 48 days to go. And we're going to need every single one of you to do your part. You know, I've gotten to know this president over the last 4 years. I've seen him when the cameras are off. Some people think we're a little bit different. But I got to tell you, I never met anybody more dedicated to this country than our president. I never met anybody that never stopped, never backed down on the promises that he made. President Donald Trump has been fighting for you every single day. Now it's your turn to fight for him. It's on, Ohio. But I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. What a beautiful night in Ohio. It is great to be at the Muskingum County Fairgrounds. And we're going to lead a great American comeback, and you're going to have a fair back at the Muskingum County Fairgrounds next summer. And I'll come back. I'm a small-town guy. County fairs are my strike zone. I'm telling you what. I just love it, and this is a beautiful fairgrounds. Thank you all for coming out. And thank you. And let me just say, on behalf of my family, to the people of Ohio, thank you for the privilege of serving as your Vice President. It's the greatest honor of my life. But I want to be your Vice President for 4 more years. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. So I want to thank you for the support, but I also just want to thank you. I want to thank all of the hardworking men and women that are gathered here today, and those that might be looking on for what you do for this country every day. You know, President Trump and I know that all honest work is honorable. It's been people like you, people that make things, that grow things, that raise a family, support your community, people that work with their hands and the sweat of their brow in the factory or the field, that have always made this country good and great. And it's going to be you Americans that make America great again. It is. It's been the hard work and strength of working Americans, men and women who believe in faith and family and patriotism and hard work. men and women who believe in the boundless potential of every American to live the American dream. You're the backbone of this country, and it's our great honor to serve you. It truly is. So I want you to leave here today. Say, I was out at the Muskingum County Fairgrounds. I ran into Mike. And he talked about everything that we were able to accomplish in those first 3 years. He talked about this president's vision and leadership during these challenging times. And he talked about how America is opening up again and coming back again. And I want you to go talk to your neighbors and friends. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I've always believed the most powerful media in this country is not your big newspapers, not your Columbus Dispatch, it's not your television networks, it's not even your social media. I mean it's the, I don't know what he said, but I think we agree. It's the home crowd. It's when people in your hometown find you and talk to you about an issue that's important to them, to the future of their family, of their community and state and nation. So I want you to reach out. I want you to reach out to your home crowd, at work and at worship. I want you to talk about all that we've done together and all that we have yet to do. Because the truth of the matter is, for all that we accomplished in those first 3 years, for all that we have endured together over the course of this year as America is coming back, we're just getting started. That's why we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. And when you talk to your neighbors and friends, have faith. Have faith in the ability of the American people to see through all of the noise, all the politics, all the posturing and recriminations, to see straight through to the truth, to see leadership, to know it when they see it, right? Have faith when you talk to your neighbors and friends. I think you study American history, you can see. Every time the American people have been given a choice between more freedom and less freedom, they choose freedom every single time. So carry that freedom agenda out, because that's what's on the ballot. And finally, if you're inclined to exercise that other kind of faith, I encourage you to do that too over the next 48 days. You know, it seems like you turn on the television on any given day and it looks like there's more that divides us in this country than unites us. But, you know, I've been traveling all across America the last 4 years. And I can tell you, I'm more convinced than ever that there will always be more that unites us in this country than could ever divide us. And chief among those things is faith. This is a nation of faith. And so if you're inclined to bow the head and bend the knee over the next 48 days, I encourage you to do that. I truly believe that, I truly do believe that if His people who are called by His name will humble themselves and pray, He'll do like He's always done. In the long and storied history of this country, He'll hear from heaven and He'll heal this land. This one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So pray for America. Pray for all of the American people. It'll make a difference. So thank you for coming out today. I leave here today with renewed confidence, more confidence than ever, that with your continued support, with you giving voice to all that we've done together and all we have yet to do, with President Donald Trump in the White House for 4 more years, and with God's help, we're going to make America great again. Again. Thank you all very much. God bless you. God bless Ohio, and God bless America.
Good evening, everybody. Christine Barconi here in our NBC4i streaming center. The vice president just wrapped up at the Muskingum County Fairgrounds just outside of Zanesville. There in central Ohio, east central Ohio. A little bit east of us here in Columbus. I'm going to bring on Congressman Tim Ryan. He is joining us right now from Washington, D.C., Democratic congressman, to talk kind of a rebuttal of what the vice president had to say. And I know, Congressman, you probably want to jump right in and start talking about Lordstown, since that is your area. The vice president talked a lot about that and what the Trump administration has done, what they say they have done there.
Yeah, well, there's still there's no workers. We lost 4,000 workers out at the General Motors plant. A lot of those workers feel like the president betrayed them. I tried to get a hold of the president, Sherrod Brown. We sent letters. The head of the union, he ignored all of us. And then when the final jobs left, he blamed the head of the union. We're trying to get an electric vehicle company in there. There's a low interest loan program that helped Elon Musk. I put money in for that program to be started up again. The president zeroed it out in his budget 2 years in a row. So he not only didn't help us lose the jobs, now we're trying for the jobs of the future, and he's MIA on that too.
So the electric truck plant, there are workers in there, but is it a net loss of workers? It's not as many as that who were working on the cruises at Lordstown?
Yeah, not even close. The cruise had 4,000 workers there, 3 shifts. Auto workers making $30 an hour, good health care, good retirement. Those are the middle class jobs that we continue to lose. And the president made a lot of promises. He told people in Youngstown, don't sell your house, so he didn't do that. Then he took on Goodyear and basically tried to organize a boycott as president of the United States of Goodyear. So workers are starting to really understand that this president has betrayed them and he's not on their side. Pence can say all he wants, but those are the facts.
So the vice president also talked about former Vice President Biden's statement that he made, I believe it was near Pittsburgh a week or so ago, that he would not end fracking in eastern Ohio, Pennsylvania, where we are seeing that, Muskingum County, part of that as well, all up and down the Ohio River. But he said basically don't believe him. Why do you think he said that after Joe Biden said the other day that he would not end fracking?
Well, this campaign from Trump and Pence is a campaign of trying to make Joe Biden look like somebody that he's not. They're trying to paint him as a socialist and all of these things. Nobody buys that. They try to say he's for defunding the police. That's absurd. That he has a great relationship with law enforcement and he can bring some healing to this country. But when it comes to natural gas, I've had this conversation with the vice president. He is supportive of the big cracker plant up in Northwest PA. He's supportive of the one that's coming in Belmont County, $10 billion. He's supportive of the union workers who go out there to construct those plants. And he's very close to those union members, the electrical workers, the plumbers and pipe fitters. Those are longtime friends of Joe Biden. That's why he supports those, because he knows those are good middle class jobs and it's cheap energy for consumers. And also a good bridge fuel, good for the environment, and a good bridge fuel as we start to move towards renewables.
So reading down on the former Vice President Joe Biden's website talking about the Green New Deal, he doesn't say he's exactly for it, but he says it's worth exploring. That's another thing that the vice president was talking about today, how they say that Joe Biden would be kind of just a workhorse for the people who he calls ultra liberal in Congress, who want this Green New Deal, who want to end fracking. Do you believe that's the case?
No, it's just a blatant lie to try to turn those workers in Eastern Ohio and Western PA away from Joe Biden. It's not going to work. Joe Biden, as he has said clearly, he is for these natural gas plants, supportive of them. And, Trump and Pence are trying to create something. They wanted to run against Bernie Sanders. They wanted to run against maybe some of the people in our party who were a little more out of the mainstream, a little more left. There are people like I don't agree with them. People like Joe Biden don't agree with them. They wanted that, but they didn't get it. And so now they have to face the reality that Joe Biden is going to capture the middle of the political spectrum in Ohio and across the country, and they're in deep trouble because you look at all the polls with Trump, he has a real ceiling of 43, 44%. So they try to, smear Joe Biden, but it's not working. And I want all of those workers to know in Eastern Ohio, I have one of the best records. I'm one of the biggest advocates in the Democratic Party for the natural gas industry. I trust what Joe Biden has said. He's supportive of these projects and the workers who are going to make a really good living out there putting these plants together.
Another thing the vice president spoke a lot about today is he said probably law and order. He said it, half a dozen times at least, talking about major cities who are where the protests continue and where some of them did get out of hand and there was rioting. But I found it interesting that he brought it up so many times in a place like Zanesville, Muskingum County, where they have 80,000 people in that entire county and they are not seeing those issues. Why do you think he brought it up so many times today?
Well, they're trying to scare people. They're trying to scare people. Look, we obviously have issues in the country that need resolved around racial justice. Mm-hmm. And the question is, who's best positioned to help this country heal some of the deep wounds that we have? Because this is not good for police officers. We are seeing a decline in people trying to get into the police force. We know they make great sacrifices in their families every single day. So this violence has been condemned outright by Joe Biden, by me. The whole idea of defund the police is foolish, and I don't support it, and Joe Biden doesn't support it. And so we need someone who can bring law enforcement and the Black Lives Matter groups together to try to solve this problem. But you can see, you don't have to be Einstein to figure out what Pence is trying to do here. He's trying to scare people into voting for Donald Trump. And it's not going to work because Donald Trump has made things more dangerous, more chaotic, and more flare-ups. And then he throws gasoline on the jet fuel on these fires that are burning. We want a president who's going to help us come together as a country, help us heal and move forward.
Do you think Ohio will flip back to being a Democratic state as far as the presidential election goes? Because I think I looked it up, and a president hasn't won the presidency since Ohio voted for Richard Nixon in 1960 over JFK. So do you think Ohio will flip back? And if they don't, do you still think Joe Biden could go on to carry the Electoral College?
Yeah, I don't think he needs to win Ohio, but I think he is going to win Ohio. You look at the polling numbers, Trump won the state by 8-9%. He's now down 1 or 2 to Joe Biden, depending on the poll. But you see what's happening in some of these congressional races. I think those are a real indication. In the race in Cincinnati, where Steve Chabot's running, our Democratic candidate in that race is up 5 percentage points against a longtime incumbent in a Republican district. And in that same poll, in that district 4 years ago, Trump won that district by 7 points, and now Joe Biden is up in that district. So that's happening in suburbia around the country, in Columbus as well. There's a lot of Biden yard signs in a lot of Republican areas like Worthington and others. I was down there last week. Yeah. So you're starting to see people coalescing around Biden. And here's the thing. The silent vote last time went for Trump. The silent vote this time is going to go for Biden. People don't want to get in a fight with a Trump voter. They don't want to put a yard sign up necessarily, but they're going to quietly, even if they voted for Trump last time, they're going to quietly go vote for Joe Biden, and he's going to win Ohio.
I've noticed that too, driving around in different affluent suburbs of Columbus, Bexley, Upper Arlington, Worthington, like you mentioned. There is definitely a majority of Biden signs out there. One more question for you this evening. So you talked about the suburban vote. Particularly, a lot of people are really thinking it's going to be suburban women who, really decide this election, especially in Ohio. What about the rural vote? Do you think you're going to see anybody flipping? I'm from Eastern Ohio, so are you. But like those more rural areas outside of the cities, like Youngstown, Steubenville, places like that, do you think that will be steadfast, or do you think I think
Trump's going to do well there, but I think Joe Biden's going to do a lot better than Hillary Clinton did. Mm-hmm. The rural areas of Ohio have been devastated by the Trump trade policies, especially his trade war with China, which has closed down markets for farmers in Ohio, especially in southern Ohio, but also northwest Ohio and other places. So they've been really hurt by Trump's chaos. And I think there's going to be a certain percentage of them who recognize that Joe Biden's a good and decent man. He's stable, and he will begin to right the ship with our relationships abroad. Look, you got to take on China on a lot of issues that we have with them, but you don't do it at the expense of our agriculture industry and our farming industry. And I think you're going to see a real rural agenda by Vice President Biden. So he's going to tamp down those losses in rural Ohio, and I think you're going to see that affect his ability to win the state.
So it seems like the Trump-Pence campaign is really starting to rev up their presence in Ohio. We had the vice president today. The president announced that he will be in Toledo, I believe, next week. Made that announcement a short time ago. Do you expect to see former Vice President Biden in Ohio, back in the Buckeye State, anytime soon?
I hope so. I hope so. You know, I try not to be too critical of campaigns. They're running a national election. They have a lot of states they have to look out for. We would love to have Joe Biden here. I think it would certainly move the needle. And there's a lot of people excited to see him here. But they've got to make that calculation at the headquarters based on how we win. Because in my estimation, it's like, how do we win? How do we hit reset in America and put this national nightmare behind us? And whatever it takes, we're willing to make those sacrifices. We'd love to see him here. And he was very effective as vice president for us. Helped us with a new billion-dollar steel mill, helped us with a lot of technologies, but was great for Akron. A lot of the stuff out of the stimulus bill helped our area. And so he could come here and he would have a lot to talk about, a lot to brag about. So I hope he comes, but that's up to them.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman, for being with us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
We will chat with you soon.
Go Buckeyes. We're back.
That's right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us this evening on NBC4i.com. It's been a very long day. I feel like I've been face to face with all of you for many hours this evening. I will clip the entire vice president's speech, as well as the rebuttal from Congressman Tim Ryan, coming up here in just a few minutes, and you can watch that full thing on NBC4i.com. For now, I will see you all later.